Okay guys, hi, welcome here again. Mark calling in from his favourite valley, hillside of the Rhone River region of France. It's another one of our weekly series on the future of travel in what is very, very changeable times. Same as the last couple of weeks, each day brings a whole lot of new announcements and changes. It's certainly a volatile time. And so we're going to summarise the last week, what's been happening, and what the impact's on you, particularly on digital nomads and remote workers as you're struggling to get out and travel the world. So here in France, our 100-kilometre limit ceased yesterday. So the country is allowed to travel right around the mainland section of France, but not necessarily sorry. Oh, sorry, here we go. Technical issues. I said things were starting to change rapidly, and sure enough, Facebook changes their app daily at the moment. Now we need to change a different button to choose the camera. Now, as you probably saw, my front camera is not working properly, so I'm using the back camera. So if you're sending me notes, I'm sorry I can't actually read them because it's now pointing out somewhere to yonder. Anyway, I was talking about France and the lockdown. The 100-kilometre limit has ceased in the last 24 hours, 36 hours. So people are starting to travel again. As soon as the high concentration of lockdowns finished, people were moving. Here at Agit, there's been a steady flow of new customers coming in from Lyon, which technically is 100 kilometres from where we are. And yesterday we saw the arrival of some more COVID escapees, as I think we're becoming known as now, people that are stuck in a country not trying to get home. In this case, there were some French people that were stuck in mainland France. It's a half a family, the other half is still back home, and that home being Reunion Island in the middle of the Indian Ocean, and not been able to get home for 3 months. A couple of kids and their father, who's struggling to work electronically as a university lecturer. So this sort of is highlighting the people that are travelling don't necessarily fall into that classic group of leisure or business. The main two groups that have been driving the tourism industry over the last 100 years. So what we're seeing now are travellers that are falling into other niches that have historically been too small, niches like our digital nomad movement, which has been relatively small and overlooked. And suddenly these niches are, there's greater numbers of travellers there than what there is in the mainstream conservative travel markets. And so people are starting to, suppliers, airlines, things like this are starting to wake up and put things in a different perspective. Another thing that we saw this week, so first of all, internal borders coming down in certain countries. External borders have started opening. Belgium opened their borders to 4 countries, and one of our favourite places, Bulgaria, has had a partial opening as well, so where EU citizens and residents of Bulgaria are allowed back into the country across the borders. UK, good old UK, still struggling to figure out what they're going to do with everything. They look like opening up their air borders, but not necessarily their river border, their ocean borders, which is going to drive a confusing situation. If you can arrive by air and not go through quarantine, as has been talked about now, but you arrive by boat or train, maybe you do have to go through quarantine. So it's still very confusing there in the UK. So, all right, does that mean we don't travel? Well, you've probably seen the airlines are starting to kick in. Ryanair, as of the 1st of July, will have 1,000 flights a day operating. Pretty big first move into getting travel happening back amongst Europe at least. It's certainly short haul travel. KLM Dutch Airlines, another big one moving into this space quickly to open up lots of new routes. They're taking advantage of the competitive situation which is affecting a lot of the airlines. Some big reports out of Emirates. So Emirates have had a magnificent run for a good 10 years, maybe 20 years now, growing steadily, routing a lot of traffic through the Middle East. They've concentrated a lot of their aircraft, are large long-haul aircraft, like the Airbus A380. Well, apparently they now have something like 130 or 170 spare A380s. And they're thinking that long-haul travel is going to be difficult for a while. Short-haul is going to become more normal, maybe even shorter trips for the average traveller. Now, as a nomad, as a remote worker, it might mean that we're now going to take 2 or 3 or 4 hops on different airlines to get to where we thought we were going to go. Whereas last year we might have only taken one direct long haul. You know, it might be you fly from Berlin to Bangkok. Well, there might actually be a lot less of those flights happening. You might have to do some interim steps. Maybe you go through Turkey and then change airlines and pick up a second flight that way. As the airlines reconfigure for shorter hauls, there's obviously a huge uptake in the airline cleaning equipment and the filtering equipment that's going into a lot of modern airlines, if they weren't there already, to make airline travel very, very safe. I just got off the phone with IATA, the International Air Travel Association, and they were talking about a lot of the improvements that a lot of airlines have been making around the world. And the competitive situation has jumped in dramatically. And so you're seeing some aggressive behaviour, people like Ryanair getting in and really dumping the prices and putting flights in and just trying to pick up and rebuild brand equity again. At the other time, other airlines that have been chopping and changing, can't work out their mind, they are the ones that are struggling a little bit. So, what's it all mean? Well, IATA was just telling me that there's some 250 changes a day going on at the moment between airline schedules, not even activity, but the scheduled flights, the border controls, the visas, the lockdown scenarios, the quarantine scenarios. 250 changes a day around the world at the moment. They're updating their website every 15 minutes because of this huge volume of changes. Now, what it also means is that here we are, we're going to cross the border, Italy over the back there, want to go to Italy. All right, what are the rules? Well, we might not actually know until we get to the border as to what the rules are that day. And at the same time, the border guards, as we've been talking about the last few weeks, they're not necessarily going to know those rules. They're going to get flash alerts and things that are changing. So as travellers, we've got to get ready to expect that there's going to be glitches and changes that are occurring at the last minute. Consequencing, are we going to book long-haul travel months ahead? Probably not. Are we going to make sure we have travel insurance that we can get a refund very easily? Are we going to choose airlines that do give refunds? Absolutely. Some airlines have been holding on to the money, keeping it as a deposit for a future flight instead of refunding it. Well, you know, perhaps I don't want to go to Norway next year, whereas I do want to go last year, so I don't want to necessarily fly with Norwegian Airlines. Can I have my money back, please? Well, where is the money? Is it with the airline? Is it with the credit card company? All of this is going to take more time and effort to solve. So we're expecting an increase in short haul flights for those that are flying, certainly an increase in ground-based travel, even though it looks like different rules between crossing borders by ground as it is by air. We're expecting shorter holidays, and then we're looking at the accommodation. So in some places the accommodation prices are coming right down, particularly in cities. The prices are coming right down. A lot of rural areas around the world are still not yet opening. There's still a lot of people closed. They haven't reopened from their lockdowns. They're still looking for a different sort of change of patterns before they open. That's leaving a little bit of an undersupply of properties, and the prices are not necessarily discount rates. You know, we just got some prices out of Ibiza on the island out there off of Spain for summer. Obviously one of the most popular travel areas for Brits, particularly over the last few years. And you know, you're talking about thousands of pounds or euros each month to rent some of these apartments. Whereas in other parts of the country, so I think we looked at a room in London at the moment, 70 US dollars, might have even been Australian dollars, 70 US dollars at the moment, for a nice 3.5, 4 star. So pretty affordable sort of prices even for overnight. Now, obviously at Nomad Stays we're getting much better rates because you're staying longer, and the hotels and apartment blocks and hostels are all giving us great prices for that longer stay. Planning where to go and what to do next is obviously a major problem. And so we're expecting a lot of people to be hunting around, moving in packs, finding out that, oh, there's a route open, there's a whole series of flights going somewhere, there's a no quarantine, and whooshka, there's a group of nomads that go and hit a new country. You know, we talked a little bit last week about Montenegro. Montenegro is now coronavirus free, and the borders are opening up, and a beautiful place in European on the water, lots of ultra expensive cruise ships and sailing boats and all sorts of things around there. So we're seeing aggressive marketing coming out of places like Montenegro that you would have considered second tier previously, because the big places aren't necessarily kicking in their marketing at the same time. So overlay all of that to what has been a very big week politically. You know, it didn't take much to sort of realise that these massive riots and demonstrations going on in the US have spread. They spread from where the problem was initiated to many cities in the US. We've seen riots also kick off in Paris, parts of Germany, and other parts of the world. And it's leaving a distrust of governments out there at the moment. People are not sure about whether their government is on their side or they're not. They're unsure of whether to believe the governments or not. Not just around COVID, but a whole range of matters. And there's the Black Lives Matter movement in the US has been coming for a long time, as a lot of the reports have been saying. And it's people are just saying, well, enough's enough. You know, now's the time to make some significant changes. I want to breathe confidence back in my government and in my bureaucracy. And the bureaucracy and the governments haven't necessarily been handling a lot of this very well. And that's leaving a bit of a distrust in some places. And that's going to have an impact on visitors. It's going to have an impact on people travelling. Do you want to go and travel to a place that's likely to have a riot? I was just talking to one of my staff, and he was just talking about the difficulty he faced in Paris when he went to visit there recently. Well, it was in the last couple of years, not the last couple of months. Now he's a native resident of Serbia. Went to Paris and he found it very difficult. He found people very harsh, and he found it not a particularly safe area once he got away from the main downtown tourist regions and the rivers and so forth. So, not that all of Paris is like that, but there are sections of every big city that's like this. Now, with political insurrection kicking in larger, people losing trust, they're going to say, am I safe to go to this city? Am I safe to fly with this airline? What about this property I'm staying at? Has it got nice cleanliness factors and health factors? All of these are now being combined to change people's habits. They're thinking a little bit more. Part of that is that people are now heading into the countryside a lot more. They're heading to regional areas. They're going to smaller areas that are not necessarily as dynamic as they might have felt before, but it's more wholesome. There's a chance to grab your breath back. There's a chance to reconnect. So rural tourism we're still seeing as increasing around the world, and urban tourism still struggling, even with the lower prices a little bit. The fear factor of too many people in such a crowded area is sort of getting in the way and start playing havoc. Great deals out there still. Some of our friends in Bulgaria were reporting that it was costing them, what was the price? 45 euros to rent a car for a month at the moment. You could fly into the country because the borders are open for Europeans. You could jump out, hire a car for a month. You can rent a room. We've got rooms like 250 euros for a month in Bulgaria, and for under €1,000 a month, you've just had a great holiday, or you've just gone and enjoyed yourself in a great new location, a great new country you haven't explored before. So deals like this don't come around so often, so this is driving a lot of the nomad behaviours. As the nomads that like to travel like us, you want to sort of find the next opportunity. But back again, you want to be balancing out the brand and reputation of what's going on. Hong Kong is another difficult area. We're seeing the economy struggling with the lockdowns, with the new police laws, with the introduction of harsher responses, and business people and families are starting to move out of Hong Kong. Where are they going? Well, with borders like Australia closed, they're obviously not going down there. In fact, I think reports were that there was some 360,000 students in Australia that left the country with COVID. We know about 800,000 Australians did not return home, and there's nearly 750,000 tourists a month not arriving. When you start looking at these millions of people not there every month, it has a big impact on the economy. So the economic hit is still yet to come. Australia's announced their economic hit for the last 3 months. They've gone backwards, and sorry, not for the last 3 months, for the first 3 months of this year, January through to March. The Australian economy shrunk. You remember they had floods and fires very badly over the Christmas time, and then COVID has hit. So we're expecting a lot of countries to have economic hits really quite harsh, and that's just leaving people poorer. And you know, when you don't have as much money in your back pocket, you're maybe not going to take that round the world flight this year. You might not be taking that 3-month holiday to celebrate the 50th birthday or retirement or something. You might be downscaling your activity. So probably some of the harder hit areas are likely to be those 4- and 5-star hotels, particularly those that have lived on a lot of events and conferences. Now, events and conferences are starting to kick back. Again, they've got limits on the numbers and size of these things, but people, now that they've got some certainty from their governments on the borders, are starting to schedule their conferences or confirm their dates. So we've got some activities in this space, so keep a close eye on the website to sort of see the latest updates on which events are being confirmed and which ones not. It's been another big week. Every day something changes, and I'm sure your inboxes, your social feeds are full of the same confusing stuff that we're all seeing. See if I can summarise all of that. Confusion reigns for a while. Deals are out there. Short haul's kicking in. Lots of changes at the bureaucratic level, which is going to slow down some of the border crossings and things like that. But by and large, in most countries of the world, the infection rates have been coming down and life is getting back to normal, even if you have to wear a mask. Expect to wear a mask on every airline and every airport that you go through, even places that are not traditionally used to wearing masks and things like this, and countries that are relatively safe and coronavirus free. I think New Zealand is free of coronavirus too, so even places like that, just got to expect that you're going to have to wear the mask and go through some extra checks, even if you don't know what they are when they arrive. Okay, that's enough for me today. Hope you've had a good week. Look forward to seeing you next week, and we shall see what the next 7 days brings in the life of travel. Cheers for now.